Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about my TBR for the 2025 R Fantasy Bingo Board Challenge, which is a reading challenge hosted on the R Fantasy subreddit every year. It runs from April 1st to March 31st, and you get 25 prompts to try and read 25 speculative fiction across the year. It can be fantasy, sci-fi, horror, anything that would fall in the speculative fiction category. I think this will be my third year making a TBR for this challenge, and I have not yet managed to actually complete any of those TBRs. I haven't managed to beat any of the boards yet, but I do want to give it another good try this year, and I really liked the prompts that they put together this year. So we're just going to dive straight in because we do have 25 books to talk about, and I'm going to scoot over so that I can put the bingo board here for you to see. So starting on row 1, our very first prompt is Knights and Paladins, which is to read a book where the main character or one of the main characters is a knight or a paladin, and I'm going to be reading Legendborn by Tracy Deonn for this one. This is a kind of King Arthur and the Round Table story, and I'm really intrigued by this. I've heard a lot of great reviews for it. It's been on my shelves for quite a while, so this is one I'm just trying to pull up from the bottom of my TBR stack and try to reprioritize it because I have heard some really great things about it, and I also have the audiobook, so I should be able to listen to it while working on some of my crafting stuff as well. That makes it really convenient to read, and it's silly that I haven't gotten to it yet. Our second prompt is Hidden Gem, which is to read a book with less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads, and this was, I think, one of the hardest ones to find a book to fit because I'm trying to pick only from my own TBR, and I was having the worst time finding anything that I already owned that had less than 1,000 ratings that wasn't a new release. Because for this prompt, it has to be a book that's been out for a while. It can't just be something that's new and not a lot of people have had time to read it. It has to be something that's been out for a while and it still has under 1,000 ratings. So I've chosen Whispers in the Walls by E.A. Copen, which is the second book in the Felix Cross series, but it's a series about an exorcist, and he is traveling around doing exorcism stuff. The first book was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was also a really quick read, and this was a good chance to dive back into the series and hopefully finish it. I think it's 4 books, and this one has 48 ratings as of the time that I chose it for this list. Next up, we have Published in the 80s, which is to read a book published between 1980 and 1989, and I happen to find just one on my shelves that was published in 1989. It's Guards by Terry Pratchett, which I have actually started, and you can finish a book you already started for this challenge if you've read less than a third of it. I think I've read 40 pages of this, so I have quite a bit of it left to go, so it still counts, but I have been wanting to, again, reprioritize that. This is a theme here, is that quite a few of these books are things I'm trying to drag back up to the top of my TBR. I can't remember if I've already said that. But yeah, so Guards by Terry Pratchett came out in 1989, August of 1989, and it's the first book in the Night Watch portion of the Discworld series. Then we've got High Fashion, and this was to read a book where textiles or fashion were a significant part of the plot. This could be the main characters involved in it, or it's a major piece of the world building that drives the plot. I've chosen Sword Crossed for this by Freya Marsk, and that's because one of the 2 characters in this book is the heir to a failing family business that is based in textiles. They trade textiles and I think wool as well. So it works out perfectly because I love a good Freya Marsk book, and it's a little bit lighter than some of the other things that I managed to put on this list because it's a fantasy romance. I'm sure there will be dark moments in it because Freya Marsk does those really well, but a lot of the other stuff I've added is heavier fantasy or sci-fi, so I like that I'll have something that's a little more romancy in here as well. The final prompt on this row is Down with the System, which is to read a book that is in some way about taking down a system. And for this one, I've chosen Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. I don't know much about this, but this was in the recommended list for this prompt, and it's one on my shelf that I've been really eager to get to. I read the first prologue piece of it when I first bought it, and I immediately was crying, so I think it's going to be a good time and I need to get to it. Moving on to row 2, our first prompt here is Impossible Places. This has to be a space that is in some way unusual, the geometry doesn't make sense, it's bigger on the inside, those kinds of things. And I've chosen Piranesi because my understanding is that the house in this is very strange. The hallways move, there's oceans inside of it, so I feel that works well for Impossible Places. Then we've got A Book in Parts, which is a book that is broken up into more than chapters. It could be different parts, it could be broken into days, it just has to be more than having individual chapters. So I've chosen Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff, which has books. It's said, book 1, book 2, book 3 within a single book. And I'm trying to get to this one finally because I read 200 and something pages of this book when it first came out, and then I set it down because I had something going on and was busy and didn't have time to read it, and I never got back to it. And I really need to get back to it because I also own the second book. So this is yet another one that I'm trying to shove back up on the priority list. Then we've got Gods and Pantheons, which is to read a book around gods and pantheons, or that involves gods and pantheons. And I have chosen The God and the Gwyson by Sophie Kim. This is the sequel to The God and the Gumiho, which I read, I think, last year. I had an arc of it and absolutely loved it. It was a really fun. I gave it 4 stars overall because I think it had a few like plot conveniences that really annoyed me. But overall, it was just a ton of fun. It's a fantasy romance about a god, a like fallen trickster god, and a Gumiho who are working together to solve a series of murders. I really enjoyed it. It was a ton of fun. It really commits to its emotional beats, and now the sequel is coming out. I have an arc of it as well, and I am so excited to be diving back into this world. It's a really fun world of like gods in our modern world, but not in like a hidden way. Like the gods are there and people know that they're there, and there's like magazines about them and they're on social media. I just think it's a really fun version of a world where like gods walk among people, and I had a lot of fun with the first book. The next prompt on this one is the last in a series, and I've chosen The High King by Lloyd Alexander for this, partially because it's a series I know will be easy for me to finish because it's a middle grade or really a children's fantasy series that I'm revisiting because I read one book out of it when I was a kid and then never came back to it. I didn't know it was a series until many years later, so it's one that I'm revisiting just to like actually find out what the series is all about, since I only ever read that one book. And I also have put it here because it's a series that's on my list of series I would like to complete this year, and it seemed like the most reasonable one to try and complete this way. Last one on this row is book club or read along, which is to read a book that was chosen previously for one of the Our Fantasy book clubs or read alongs. And I've chosen The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, which was a previous pick for their Goodreads book club, and I'm really intrigued by this one because it's basically like fantasy lawyers, sort of like fantasy lawyers, but also fantasy detectives, and that's pretty much exactly my jam. Moving on to row 3, the first prompt here is Parents, which is a book where one of the main characters is a parent, and I think the hard mode version of this prompt, which I'm not doing hard modes for the most part, but the hard mode version for this one is a book where there is a parent and then the child is also a major character. And I've chosen Bless Your Heart by Lindy Rhyme, which I think does fit hard mode. This is about 3 generations of women, or possibly 4 generations of women, who run a funeral home in Texas, and they also happen to be vampire hunters. It sounds super fun. I've heard some good things about it, and I'm really excited to get to this, and I think there's a sequel coming out this year as well. Then we've got Epistolary, which is, as it sounds, to read an epistolary book, or something that is also incorporating like journals or diary entries, things that don't necessarily like address to someone, but has that sort of format of like you're writing to someone. So for this one, I've chosen Maplecroft by Sherry Priest. I saw it on the recommendation list for this challenge. I was actually having trouble finding an epistolary book to choose, and I had this one on my shelf and I didn't know it was epistolary, but it's about Lizzie Borden if she was a monster hunter, and it's apparently told through a series of letters and journals and diary entries and things like that. So it's like different pieces of a story or different perspectives on an event that slowly pieced together a story. So I'm really intrigued by that. I didn't know that was the format of it, but I'm really interested in reading it now. Next up is published in 2025, and I decided to go with something easy for this one. We're going with The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, which I've chosen because I am already reading it, but I am less than 30% of the way through. I am actually 29%, so just barely, but it counts. And I wanted to go ahead and pick that one because I'm reading it right now, I'm really enjoying it, and I felt like that would be an easy win for this prompt. Then we've got Author of Color, and I'm choosing Lone Women by Victor Laval for this because this was a horror book that came out a couple of years ago that I heard just rave reviews for, and then I never got around to reading it. But I have read and enjoyed a few other books from Victor Laval, so I know it's probably going to be a good time. This one I believe is about a woman who moves by herself to the Midwest during the kind of like gold rush era, but then she has some sort of creepy chest that she carries with her, that she has something locked in. I'm unclear on what exactly is going on, but I've just heard so many good reviews for it that I kind of don't care. I'm just intrigued and I want to like go along for the ride. And then finally on this row, we've got small press or self-published books, so to read something that was published by not one of the big 5 publishers. And I've chosen Ling Hun by Ai Zhang. I cannot remember the name of the publishing house for this one, but I did check. It's a small indie press, and this is one I've been meaning to read for a while now. It's a novella about a place called home, all capital letters, where you go if you want to be haunted, and I think it's supposed to be about grief. I'm really interested in that. I think a lot of books are about grief, but I don't think I've read one where it deals with it in quite this way. So I'm really intrigued to give this one a try. Our penultimate row 4, starts with Biopunk, which is to read a book where biotechnology is really central to the story. And I'm choosing The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Yet another book that's been kind of sitting on my shelves for a while, but this one is about the daughter of Dr. Moreau. If you're not familiar with the original The Island of Dr. Moreau, it's about a guy on an island who's like experimenting in crossing human DNA with animal DNA and creating these hybrid human animals, and Daughter of Dr. Moreau is about that, but from the daughter's perspective. She doesn't exist in the original, but from the daughter's perspective. And it seems like it's probably going to be like really lush writing because it's Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I'm intrigued to see her take on this because I actually don't really care for The Island of Dr. Moreau, but I'm curious to see if I will like the premise better with her writing and her kind of take on it. Then we've got Elves and Dwarves, and I'm choosing The Tomb of Dragons by Catherine Addison, which has elves in it. It's set within the Elvish Empire, and they are recognizably tall, pale, pointy-eared fantasy elves. So that works well for that prompt, and I've been meaning to get to it as soon as I can anyway. This was a new release this year. It's the 3rd book in the Cemeteries of Amalo spin-off series from the Goblin Emperor, and I just haven't been able to read it yet because I pre-ordered it, but when I moved, that particular order that I had placed had already had something else from it ship, so I couldn't change the shipping address on it, and the books in it are now getting shipped to my mom's house. So I have to wait until I go visit my mom to get the book, but I should be seeing her around Easter, so I will have it at that point. Then we have another pretty straightforward prompt, which is the LGBTQIA+ protagonist prompt, and I'm going to go with The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke for this one. This is a book my friend has been wanting me to read for a while, and we want to discuss it because she ended up not liking it as much as she anticipated, but this one is following a woman who is a general in an empire that basically stole her away from her homeland as a kid and raised her to be a warrior for them, and now she is getting, I think, stationed back in her home country as a part of their effort to colonize it. And also there's some sort of romance with the evil princess of the country that she now lives in. So I'm unclear on like what's going on there, but I just know my friend wanted to talk about it, so I'm gonna try and read it so that we can have that discussion finally, because I think she read it like 4 years ago, so she's been waiting for me for a while to get to that one. Then we've got 5 short stories, which I think is on the board every year. The concept basically being to read at least 5 speculative fiction short stories. And I don't actually have any anthologies or anything, but I do have The Last Wish, which is the first book in the Witcher series, which is actually a series of short stories about the Witcher. I think the first 2 books are both short story collections, and then the 3rd book is the first novel. That's my understanding anyway, and I remember this one being a short story collection, so we're just gonna roll with it because I didn't have any other good options for this prompt. And then lastly on this row we have Stranger in a Strange Land, which is to read a book about a character who is moving to or visiting a place where they are a minority, that they are you know, not the norm, and they're having to deal with like the culture clash of that. And for this one I'm picking Blackwater Sister by Zin Cho, yet another one I managed to pull from the recommendation list that people have been putting together for this challenge. This one being about a young woman who is going back, I believe, to Malaysia. Her family is from Malaysia, and she ends up going back there at a like kind of tumultuous point in her life where she is also being haunted by like the ghost of her grandmother, but she's never been there before, hasn't been there in a very long time, so it's about her dealing with that like shift and also dealing with being haunted, because I'm sure that's going to take a lot of dealing with as well. Our final row 5, starts with Recycle a Bingo Square. So we had to pull a square from a previous year's board, and I ended up pulling a square from the 2020 board, which is to read a translated book, so that I could read Strange Pictures by Oketsu. This was another one I bought recently that I'm excited for, and it's a translated horror book from, translated from Japanese by a YouTuber, actually, a viral YouTube sensation in Japan, and yeah, it just sounded really weird. I think it's sort of a series of stories that slowly build together in some way, and it's all kind of centered on a series of weird pictures, strange pictures, as it were. So I think it sounded really interesting, and I've seen some other people reading it and having an interesting time with it, so I wanted to get in on that. Then we've got Cozy SFF, and I don't really care for cozy stuff very much, but luckily this prompt gave us some space for interpretation and said to pick whatever you particularly find cozy or comforting. So I'm going to be reading The Red Scholar's Wake by Aliette de Bardard. It's one of her Zuya universe books, and I just love this series so much. It's so fun, the mysteries are so good. Usually there's some sort of like intense emotional theme in them, so I don't know if everybody would find them cozy, but I just love the way that she writes her characters and the way that she writes the romances in these books. So I'm on board with it. I know I'm gonna find it cozy and it's gonna work out well for me. Next up, we've got a generic title. This had to have one of a series of words on it that was like blood, court, battle, throne, bone, I think was one of them. Series of words, but the one I've chosen is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, so we have the word throne there. This one is, I think, also a kind of romantic fantasy, heavier on the fantasy with more of a romance subplot, and it's, I think, supposed to be quite political as well. I don't really remember the gist of the premise, but I know that my friend, who also wants me to read The Unbroken, read this one around the same time, and she actually really enjoyed The Jasmine Throne, so she thinks that I will like it as well. Then we've got Not a Book, which I think is a really cool prompt. The idea for this is to engage with speculative fiction in a format that isn't a book. Could be watching a TV show or a movie, playing a tabletop RPG, or playing a video game. And I just think that's a really cool prompt. And I have also already completed this one. So this one, I decided I was going to play Graveyard Keeper yesterday, which I just was gifted yesterday. I played it on stream, and it was a weird game following this man who gets hit by a car on his way home, and he wakes up in a alternate world where everything is like really weird, and he's just kind of arbitrarily made the graveyard keeper of the town, or rather of the village, I guess. The area around him is called the village, and then there's the town, and they're in the kingdom. And while he's there, he is having to like manage this graveyard, try to reopen the church, and figure out how he can get home to his wife. And it looks like there's going to be there's some magic, there's like a portal that you need to activate to get home, there's a talking skull, there's scavenging bodies for resources. It's kind of horror, it's kind of fantasy, and it was really fun, but also really poorly made, which I can't explain. I think that it's really odd as an experience, but it did let me go ahead and finish this prompt right out the gate. I don't even have to like jot this one down, it's already done. So that was fun. It was really cool to think about how that game was using its like fantasy elements, because they are like really vague. And then finally we have Pirates, and I have chosen a very obvious book for this, which is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, because I haven't read that yet, and I've heard so many good reviews of it. This one about a mother who is also a former pirate who ends up taking on that like one last job, and it sounds like she has all kinds of high seas adventures, and also is dealing with taking care of her son. So really interested to read this one. Again, I've heard a lot of really great reviews, and I am sad that I haven't gotten to it yet, because it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, those are the 25 books I'm gonna attempt to read for our fantasy bingo this year. Hopefully, I guess it's technically 24 books because of the one prompt that's not a book. But yeah, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to make more progress on it this year. I feel like I'm doing a little bit better each year, getting a little bit further, so I'm hopeful that I might actually finish a board. But all of that aside, let me know down in the comments below if you are going to be participating in the Our Fantasy Bingo Challenge this year, and if so, what prompt are you most excited for? Editing Hope here. I apparently didn't bother to finish my outro for whatever reason, so I don't know what that was about. But anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!